So for lottery automation, there are two different types of contracts, the retailer contract and vendor partner contracts. Our lottery automation addresses both types of those contracts. Today, we're just going to focus on the the retailer contracts. And the great thing is that our strategy to capture early in the process is enhanced because we move that application all the way up until the approved process. And when it is an approved application, it can move over and initiate that contract request. So, Carlos?
Great, thank you, Kelly. All right, so as I mentioned previously in the other session, all we did was we were able to bring in a new retailer application into the system. So instead of having them have to fill out paper, they were able to do it directly from our website or through a form. We sent them a link through our mobile app, etc. So now what we want to look at is how can we process that information that came in? So we do that in our workflow. I'm going to touch briefly on this personal page just because, again, you're probably going to see it multiple times throughout the day today. So you may have noticed I called it personal page. This is a page where every user can customize what shows up on this page. This is like their own dashboard, shows them their inbox or their workload. What's nice about this is we have tiles, and you'll see as Mike and I log in as different users, you're going to see different personal pages, different size tiles, different colors. Again, because of the personalization. Every user can move these tiles around. So if I don't like that tile over there, if I want some more spacing, I can do that. The way I've set this one up is these are all workflow tiles. I'm logged in as an analyst, and these top tiles are for new retailers. So anytime I receive some information or part of a workflow process that I work on that's for a new retailer, it's going to show up in those top tiles. These bottom tiles are for any contract renewals for retailers. Not only can a user move these around on the screen, but I can also customize things such as the title. So if I don't want this to say new retailers, maybe only retailers, and I don't like this color, or I'm getting sick of the green color, so I want to change it to a blue, that's fine. Every user can customize this. And many of the options you'll see through the lottery automation system, if I want single click access to them, I can just add them to my personal page. So again, making you as efficient as possible is really the goal of the system. One final thing, I have some users that really take advantage of this and just put everything on this personal page. So what you can see is we have a search tiles section over here in the upper right. Well, again, if I've got just a bunch of different tiles in here and I want to look for something, let's say our credit committee tile, I can start typing and you see it grays out any tiles that don't match my search. So again, just bringing that efficiency into the system. So it's highlighting the tile that matches my search. So now let's look at actually processing that application now and looking at the workflow process. So again, I'm logged in as an analyst. So with the analyst, what we're going to do is just begin that review of an application. So you saw all I did was click on that tile that showed me I had a new application, and it brings me to our workflow screen. This is where really the magic happens and where I can begin to work with this information. I was going to say documents, but again, this can be digital documents, scanned documents, just it's information that's been brought in. So you're going to see the screen quite a bit today between Mike and I, showing you the different workflow processes. So I'll give you a quick layout, how the screen is laid out here. Over here on this left-hand side, I like to call this my navigation pane. So this is where I can navigate all of the different workflow processes, stages and workflow documents or information that's in workflow. This middle section is my work area. So it's going to show me the document that I'm working on or the information. And then here, these icons here, we call these ad hoc tasks. These are all customizable. It can be customized per user, per security. And you can have as many of these ad hoc tasks as you want. And you'll see some different ones throughout the day. These will perform an action on this document or this information that we're looking at. Over here in this top area, we have what we call a life cycle. So right now we're going to be looking at the new retailer applications. That's the name of the life cycle. This is the process that we're working on. Within this life cycle, we have different steps, or we call them queues. I'm logged in as an analyst. So what you can see is I'm going to do the initial analyst review. I'm going to make sure this contract application is complete. We received all the information. I then may move it on to investigations so that they can do a security check, kind of do their background check, and then it may come back to me for an approval decision and so on. So what we're going to look at is just processing this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about these ad hoc tasks, and I'm going to start from the end. I'm going to click this add note. So we have this document that was brought in, this form. This could also be a scanned document, and I could have a mix. So it's fine if we have some retailers that are sending in paper, we can scan it, and they can be in this workflow alongside these digitally filled out forms as well. But if I click add note, maybe I need to add a virtual post-it note to this document. So I'm just going to type in a note. So this looks good so far. I'm going to click OK. And what you're going to see is over here, it's now showing me that I have one note attached to this. When I click this, it's going to show me a virtual post-it note. Everything you see in here, there is complete security. So again, I'm logged in as an analyst. So I have security rights to do certain functionality. You'll see me and Mike logging in as different users throughout the day, but we have full control over that. So if we want everyone to be able to see any of these post-it notes, we're able to show that. You can see it also shows me who the user was. So again, I'm logged in as a user just called analyst, the date and time, and their sticky note. So we've got that information, and that's our first ad hoc task that we saw. This will flow with the document throughout its entire life cycle within the lottery automation system. I'm not going to complete this application at the moment. I'm going to go ahead and just go to flag it as missing information. So if I click this ad hoc, what you're going to see is this ad hoc, I have two actions being performed. The first is it's asking me to type in a note, because if we're missing information, maybe we want to log what is missing. So I can say, need W9, even though we saw I did attach the W9. And what you'll notice is when I click OK, this application is going to move out of this queue, and it's going to come down to this missing or waiting on retailer. So I'm going to click OK. So now my queue is clear. I've done all the work in that queue, but it's now moved over to this missing info waiting on retailer. From here, if I have this retailer's email, I can have the system, as soon as I hit that ad hoc and say that it's missing information and type in my note, we can have the system send an email to that retailer telling them, we received your application, but we did not receive your W-9. Please provide that. Now, as a retailer provides that information, I can come over, click the Add Documents button, and I can scan that, bring that in. Or I can, right on the form, come over here and just attach it. This form that was received, you may have remembered, I did the driver's license and W-9. All that information flows, stays with this application. So I can click on that link, and here is that driver's license copy that came in. If I want to look at the W-9, again, I just have to click on the link, and it's going to show me the W-9 that came in. So again, think of it as we're creating that virtual digital file. So from here, again, we'll just say that the retailer sent us the information. You can see we've got the different ad hoc tasks. If I want to send a reminder, I can manually send a reminder to that retailer. We also can have what we call timers. Timers are just a way to automate a process. So let's say once we flag an application as missing information, we want to send a reminder automatically 7 days later or 14 days later. That's fine. We can set that up so that I don't have to sit there and click this send reminder. The system, after it's been in this queue for that period of time, let's say 14 days, will automatically send the reminder to the user. So we've got functionality such as the timers and notifications where we can email users. I'm going to go ahead and just say that I received that W-9 back. So now you can see this moved back to my analyst review queue. And then I'm going to go ahead and mark this as a complete application. So I'm going to click this ad hoc task. If we see now, I don't have anything else left in my workflow queues. So my process right now for this application is done. So I'm going to go ahead and log out as the analyst, and I'm going to log in as an investigations user. So with the logins, you're going to see me today and Mike, we're going to be typing in usernames and passwords because obviously we need to be able to switch accounts. Typically though, we set this up in your system, we can integrate with your Active Directory. So a user, when they click the icon, it's just going to log them in. You're not going to be prompted for a login. So here I am as the investigations user, and you can see my personal page again is different because I'm in charge of doing background investigations on applications, site assessments, and maybe the security team review. So I'm going to start my process, again, just by clicking on that tile. It'll bring me right to that workflow queue. From here, I have the ability to, again, look at the notes. So we can see that first note, sample note we put in. We can see that the user, we prompted that we needed the W9. The other thing I should mention is even the colors here can be changed. So if we want regular notes to be yellow, but when we clicked missing information, if we wanted this to be a red post-it note, that's fine. And sometimes users like to do that so you can differentiate the different types of notes. So now as this investigations user, again, I have full access to this application. I know because it's in my queue, it means the analyst has already gone through, ensured that this is a complete application. I can look at their notes. If I need to, I can still look at the attached documents. And one thing I'll show in here is that we keep a complete audit trail of everything that occurs with these documents or this information as it comes into the system. So right now I'm looking at the history for this document, and you can see it may look a little confusing at first, but it's showing us the user, what they did. So I viewed the notes, I viewed the document. It has the date and time. So we're keeping track of anytime someone views, anytime someone creates a note, like here, if I were to delete some information, we keep track of that. All of that, you get a complete audit trail. We'll also see, and I'll show this, I'll try to show this a couple times today, the workflow queues. I like to show this because you can start to see what information you're able to run reports off of. The presentation Kelly showed at the beginning, you may have noticed the reporting dashboards slide that had a couple different reports, pie charts, things like that. That's because we're capturing all this information. So what this one is showing me is this application entered the analyst review queue today at 1:23. It left that queue at 1:38. So I know that it took 15 minutes to process that application. It took the analyst 15 minutes. And then again, I see that it went to the missing information. I have when it entered, when it left, etc. So because we capture all that, if you ever need to look and see, do we have a bottleneck in our workflow process? You're going to be able to see that. Not only are you going to see how long it's taking you to process each item, but you could see, do you have a user that's maybe a little slower, maybe needs a little more training on a process? You have all that data analytics available to you. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to keep this simple for this new application. So I'm just going to say my investigation is complete. I did the background investigation outside of the system. We looked at everything. We're good with it. So I'm going to log back in as the analyst. And now you'll notice, if you remembered when we first were in here, it was in this first tile. Now it's moved over to the tile that I changed to a blue color. And this is my approval decision. So I know when it's come in here, that means that the investigations team has already done their background investigation. They've looked at this retailer and they've approved. They said they don't have any issues with this. At this point, I've got, again, different ad hoc tasks. And what I'm going to do is click this first one, assign retailer ID. So what this can do is give this retailer maybe a new ID in our system. We can either have the lottery automation system assign that ID for you, Or if I have another system, let's say an accounting system or some other system, another database that you use to assign new retailers IDs, we can actually reach out in the background to that system, say, what's the next ID number, and bring it over and tie it to this application. So if I scroll down here, I have this little section here that, again, the general public wouldn't see it when they're filling out this application. But if I expand this, I can see that we assigned it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the system reached out, it said, what's the next retailer ID? And it went ahead and populated that for us. So now this retailer is becoming an official retailer in our system because their application has been approved. I'm going to go ahead and just click the final approved ad hoc task just so that we can approve that retailer, and now they're part of the system. That application is complete in our system. I'm going to go back to my home page, and what I have done for purposes, for today's purposes for this demo, is I set up that once a retailer is onboarded, becomes a new retailer and is approved, I want their renewal, contract renewal, to be 30 days later. Of course, that's not going to be realistic in the real world, but the reason I did that is just so that we can see that it shows up in this queue. If you remember, I mentioned these bottom ones are my renewal workflow life cycles. Well, what I have these set as is let me know about 30 days before it's time for a retailer to do their contract renewal so that I can start sending notifications, contacting them, whatever my process is. So I had the system just automatically calculate 30 days for us once a retailer was approved so that we could see it show up in this queue. So I'm going to click on that workflow queue, and you're going to see we now have a different form. And we have a slightly different life cycle here. So what we have the system do is when it's time to do a contract renewal, the system will automatically create a new form for us, and you can see it populated with the retailer's ID, their name, the contract expiration. So again, it calculated that 30 days out for me. This can be whatever period of time you need, has their address information. And then you can see I've got a committee that we want to review, do a credit review on this retailer as part of the renewal process. Now, it might be hard to see on the Zoom call, but a lot of these fields, they're grayed out. So I can't type anything in here. And I did that on purpose because I just want to show another feature that we have available to us when we really want to control our users, the analysts, the contracts manager, et cetera. We want to guide them through filling out this form. So there's a way we can do that. Before I send this renewal to the credit committee by clicking this ad hoc, the other thing I want to show is, I had mentioned at the beginning that we're creating a digital file. We want to be able to have quick access to all the information for this retailer, just as if I had pulled that physical file folder. Well, down here at the bottom, this bottom right, I have what we call our related documents. And you can see it shows my retailer application here. Well, if I open up my secondary viewer, it's going to split my screen. And now I have access to that original application. So I don't have to click somewhere else. I'm in workflow. This contract has come up for renewal. Well, I don't want to have to go somewhere else, leave that screen, do a search, find that application, or go pull that physical file. We want to give you, again, those tools so you're as efficient as possible. So right from here, I can do a side-by-side look at that application. And again, I can still look at any of the required or their original required documents because they're part of the application. The other thing that I can do is we can do what we call cross-reference. So if I were to click on this renewal and choose the cross-references, here you can see it's giving me a list of any documents in the system that are related to this retailer. And sometimes this is nice to have this list here instead of opening up that other screen, because what you'll see, and I'll go ahead and pull up the W9, when I double click, it's going to open it in a new window. So now I can move this if I have two monitors to my other screen. So again, multiple ways of getting to that information. We have that related down at the bottom, the cross-reference. We give you the tools, whatever's most comfortable for the user. So I'm ready to go ahead and send this to our credit committee review. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And again, we just see that it moved over. Now, one thing, I should have mentioned with this workflow, just because I'm showing you this workflow process today, this doesn't mean this is the way yours would have to be. What we do is we come in, we look at your process, and we try to emulate that digitally. Yours can be completely different. The whole point of the sessions today is to show you guys the tools that are available as part of this, so that if it is something that you think would help and make you more efficient, that's where we come in and kind of look at your process. And we really want the system, when it's set up, to be familiar to you. So we want it to be your process. We don't want you to have to bend to another system's process. So the way I set this one up is I want to show what we call workflow approval management. So this is going to allow me to always have documents go through a certain path. We can always see where it is in that path of the approval management. And I also want to control users' information as they're typing. So again, I'm the analyst. We can see here in the credit committee, the first recommendation is from the analyst. And as I mentioned, I can't type here. I'm trying to type, nothing's coming through. Well, that's because I want to control that by having the user click this add recommendation. So when I click that, it's going to pop open a form. And from here, I can type in my response. This allows me to make sure that we're getting the information we want from the users. If we wanted them to enter additional information, we could make those required. So again, we're guiding the user to ensure that we're getting the right information here. I'm just going to be extremely generic right now, say looks good to me, and submit this. What'll happen is it's going to go out of my queue, and it's going to flow now to the retailer contracts manager for their recommendation. So I'm going to submit that. We can see now it's gone from my view, and it's now available to the retailer contracts manager. Before I jump over to that contracts manager, I want to show one really kind of cool feature here in the system that is useful for the workflow automation. So again, let's just say I'm always that person that handles that first level, but I like to take a day off every now and then. So maybe I'm going to take next week off. Well, we don't want all these contract renewals to come to a screeching halt just because Carlos decided he's going away for a week. So what I can do is set up what we call delegation. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my approval delegation. And the way I like to kind of explain this is just like my Outlook out of office notifications. I have the ability here to turn this on. So I'm just going to check this checkbox. I'm going to say that I'm going to be out until next Friday. And then here you can see it's showing retailer contracts renewal. This is one of my approval processes that I'm in charge of. Well, during this period, while I'm out of the office, I can set this to go to Dan Knezovich. So I can choose another user. And what that'll do is instead of those contract renewals showing up in my queue, being my responsibility, during that time period, they'll automatically flow to that other user and he'll be notified so he can take care of those items while I'm out of the office. And again, the user can control that. It's as simple as setting your out of office message. So let's go ahead and process this as the retailer contracts manager. So I'm just going to log in as that other user. You can see very simple. I only have one tile on my personal page here. So I'm going to click on that to, again, look at the workflow. It's going to load the document for me. You'll notice this section for the analyst, it wasn't filled out before. All the user did was they typed looks good to me, because again, we controlled that, but we also had it stamp their name and the date and time that they approved that. So again, that's where that ad hoc task, I wanted to do more than just let the user type in here. I wanted to capture the date, their username. I could have captured some additional information, but that's just, again, showing you something else that we can do with that ad hoc task. Now, one other thing that is powerful with the workflow approval management is I have the ability here, if I have user rights, to go to this workflow menu, go to this approval status, and you can see this again is showing me that audit trail. So I can see level 1 was the analyst. They approved it, and I have the date and time. It's currently pending approval by this retailer contracts manager. Again, typically it's not going to be generic names. It'll have the usernames for you. But I can also go to this future users, and I can see after I approve it, it's going to go to accounting. So we've set up this process where when the renewals come in, I want it to go to these 3 users by default. And it flows, and I can always see where it is in that process. Clicking history, again, will show me the history so I can see when a user did what with the system or with the approval. So I'm going to go ahead and just add my recommendation as the contracts manager. I'm going to ask if this one needs a security deposit because I know it's going to accounting next. And finally, we'll just log in as the accounting user here just to finish up this form in this workflow process. So I'm logged in as the accounting user. When I click on this, just to reiterate, we'll see on the form, it's showing me now that the retailer contracts manager, this date, this time, their note. I can't type here because we want the user to have to click up here, but this is where I did now open this up because I'm an accounting user where I can type in maybe the security deposit amount. And then I've got reasons down here. So I can say, you know, insufficient credit, self-assurance program, whatever, as part of this. And then I can save my form and then add my recommendations. So hopefully you're starting to see what you're able to do with the workflow in the system. You know, we basically were able to do all this just from taking that one simple application. And you probably didn't see me have to do more than 1 or 2 clicks to do a new process or to get some information about this retailer or this contract. So this is sort of your first view into the workflow process in the lottery automation system. Hopefully this is starting to make sense. I don't know if there's any questions that I can answer. So Dan, if there were any that came through that haven't been answered, just let me know. But next, we're going to take this process and Mike is going to take it and show you some additional functionality with the workflow as we're going through kind of the life cycle of this retailer.